still on the development with the resumption of course, the demonstrations, and Azimio is not rowing back. It says, or they are saying that on Wednesday, still, the calendar is marked. Demonstrations will continue apace, even as police brutality seems to be rising, and people now are having, of course, concerns regarding this brutality and the excesses from the police so far. Abductions and, of course, vandalizations of offices of some of the senators as well has been ordered over the day, and even the bloggers as well are being now rounded up by police. What does it portend? Especially when we talk about the National Police Service, and now we have a task force that is ongoing, which is being led by former Chief Justice David Maraga on transforming, of course, the police force or the police service so that we have reforms. Is this really flying in the face of what is currently ongoing? We shall be looking at that with our panelist here in the morning, being joined by Richard Onyonka, who's the Senator of Kisii. Also be joined by Danson Mungatana, Senator from Tana River. Also will be joined by the Senator from Bomet. This is Hilary Segei and Faramalim from Dadaab as well. But before we go there, let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. We begin with the bold paper, hustler caught between rock and a hard place. That is what you're waking up to this morning on the front page of the Standard today. And it says ordinary Kenyans are worst affected by the high cost of living, a flailing economy, a political turbulence. However, they also pay the heaviest price of protesting as they fall victims to police brutality, and their daily sources of income become disrupted. This story is tucked away on page 6 of the Standard today, and their views from the hustlers themselves. And we have Grace Wanjao saying hustlers are in a big dilemma today, despite having been promised heaven and earth during the 2022 campaigns. We have been cornered politically, economically, and socially. We have Alex Otieno saying life is hard and cost of doing business is very high. President William Ruto and Raila Odinga should talk to end weekly demonstrations and reduce the taxes. Also, hustlers have no space in this government. They have been denied all their rights, including jobs and finances. The enemy number one of this regime are hustlers. This is Simon Kiragu also weighing in there, right? We have Rachel Nyengiri saying, I regret voting in this government. They lied to us that they will better our lives. We have got no option. Let us suffer for this time and vote them out. Those are sentiments from the hustlers. Hustlers caught between a rock and a hard place. That is what is a splash today. On the sidebar there, Kenya credit rating takes a blow after Fitch review. Prospects of accessing cheap loans were deemed after the credit rating was revised to negative. This is on page 9. Not good, especially on the international books. And we have also Health and Science magazine coming in handy for you every Monday. Get all the wiser today as far as exclusive breastfeeding is concerned. And that is a story that you want to follow inside Health and Science. Breastfeeding, you have all the gritty details. 60,000 teachers refuse to teach junior secondary. What does it portend now? 60,000 is a big number, and that story is tucked away on page 4. Is it because of ill preparation? And fresh dollar crisis looms on fuel bill. That is 500 and almost 67 billion shillings that are yet to be paid. That is going to adversely affect also the pocket of the treasury. For Brazil, it's one step at a time. Find all the gritty details on page 32 of the Standard this morning. Allow me just to go to Daily Nation, where we have a state on trial there, and it's all about the Shakahola horror. And at a glance, security agencies, it says this security agencies judicial system blamed for Shakahola deaths. Also, victims' families in agony as results of DNA tests delayed inside the mind of a cult leader. State holds fate of detained victims of cult massacre. Detained without trial, state versus Pastor Paul Mackenzie. And 425, that is the current death toll. The state has carried out exhumations in 3 phases and performed post-mortem examination on 338 bodies so far. And it says here in submission met to a Senate ad hoc committee, Kenyans are pointing an accusing finger at the government, police, National Intelligence Service, and the Interior Ministry, as well as political leaders for sleeping on the job regarding the deadly activities of Pastor Paul Mackenzie's controversial church. And as the wheels of justice slowly turn and the country slowly recovers from the Shakahola tragedy, it is necessary to address existing gaps in the law that have allowed religious extremism to flourish. This story is covered on page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. And I have with me also Richard Onyonka, who is a member of this particular committee, will also give us all the gritty details so far as this development is concerned. Wave of arrest and abduction raises concern. President William Ruto's leadership style has come under scrutiny, with opposition leaders alleging the return of the dark Kanu era following reports of arrest, abduction, torture and killings. That is a story that you can follow on page 7. And pressure mounts on Ruto Raila to hold talks. That is another story that is well tucked away on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Today, the international community is piling pressure on President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga to dialogue and end killings and destruction of property as a result of anti-government protest. Looking at the sidebar there, agriculture senators want fertilizer distributed at ward level. Senators want the government to use aggravate or chiefs and not the National Cereals and Produce Board stores in distributing subsidized fertilizers to farmers. They'll tell us why. And also, people with suppressed HIV viral loads may not spread the virus. This is what the World Health Organization is saying. Gor Mahia pays dearly for contract breaches. You can read all about that on the back page of the Daily Nation. The Star. Why Ruto, Raila and Uhuru war a risky gamble, it says. Kenyatta tells president to face him as simmering row spills into public domain. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. There is a red flag there, and experts are warning feud could sink country into anarchy. And Ruto backs police as Azimio alleges state-sanctioned killings in demos. This protest and aftermath of it you can follow on page 6 of the Star. And also, cause of delays, Ferdinand Waititu at Milimani Law Courts on June the 22nd. DPP fails in bid for more evidence in Waititu graft case. And also, police judiciary top complaints list for Kenyans. That is a list of shame. All that is tucked away inside the Star this morning. People Daily up next. Uhuru, keep my family out of this. This is what he says. What does my mother have to do with anything? What do my children have to do with anything? If your problem is me, come for me. That is what he says. Daggers are drawn. Retired president comes out, guns blazing against the Ruto administration, saying he will not be intimidated by harassment of his relatives, defending his bond with Raila, and denies any role in Azimio demos. This is a story that you want to follow on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. On the side, Russia is keen to strengthen ties with Africa. Remember the summit that is happening in South Africa. You can follow all the story on page 13. And also, Africa's foremost polio warrior is shown here. After a friend's death, he embarked on right to raise awareness about debilitating ailments. You can follow the story on page 3 of the People Daily this morning. And Kenyans cry out over police brutality. That is a story that you want to follow inside on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. Kenya lures China to rival France for 184 billion shillings reward. Move follows a prize fallout with French contractors. Letters set back to French consortium who won tender. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Business Daily today. Now, EAC currencies gain against dominant Kenyan shillings, or Kenyan shilling, I should say. The Kenyan shilling has lost nearly 20% of its value against regional currencies in under a year, weakening its dominant position in the region in a trend that is serving pain to traders importing goods from Uganda and Tanzania. The Kenyan currency is now priced at 19.7% lower than the Ugandan shilling when compared with mid-July last year, while its value against the Tanzanian shilling and Rwandese franc has also dropped by 12.1% and 4.4% respectively in the same period. Central Bank of Kenya data showed that one Kenyan shilling was averaging 25 Ugandan shillings and 80 cents, on 17 shillings and 30 cents Tanzanian shillings, and Rwandan franc 8 shillings and 30 cents at the start of trading last year. This story continues on page 2 of the People Daily, of the Business Daily, I should say, this morning. Also, how Total escaped embarrassment, damages and customer fuel card saga. High Court Judge Chacha Mwita quashed earlier award, saying the trial court erred in holding that there was a breach of contract and wrongly awarded damages to a company for illegal detention and mental distress. Duty-free maize imports plan flops on costly supplies. Kenya's plan to import about 900,000 tons of white maize by next month has run into headwinds on costly global supplies. You can read all about it on page 5 of the Business Daily. Treasury to settle 61 billion shillings KQ loans. The government will spend a total of 61.3 billion shillings in the next 4 years to service Kenya Airways loans it had guaranteed amid growing pressure by the International Monetary Fund to seize handouts. This story continues on page 7 of the Business Daily this morning. And we can cross over border now and go to Uganda, where UETCL spends 1 billion shillings to hire 37 new staff. That is what you're waking up to in Uganda. Wrong priority? That is the problem question. The expenditure, which constitutes a significant portion of a public entity's budget, has been called into question because its internal human resources directorate could have conducted the recruitment at no extra charge or minimal cost. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Daily Monitor. Archbishop Bakienga laid to rest, fare thee well. That's how it went down yesterday. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor in Uganda. In Tanzania, telcos cash in as social media use rises sharply. Mobile data is now the fastest growing revenue stream for telecommunications companies there, as Tanzanians increasingly turn to social media platforms as sources of information. You can read the rest of the details on page 3 of the Citizen in Tanzania. And let's see what we have on the front page of the New Times. Just crossing over to Rwanda, set for district by-elections. The elections for district councillors and mayor will take place on the same day. This is a story you want to follow on page 3 of the New Times. Kagame gifts Ngweso Inyambo cows. That is a story you want to follow on page inside the Daily Monitor. Not the Daily Monitor, but the New Times in Rwanda. And we can see President Paul Kagame and his counterpart from the Republic of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, during a tour of the former's farm at Kibugabuga in Bugesera district on Saturday. This story continues on page 22nd or page 22 of the New Times this morning. MPs propose adequate VAT reward to consumers as law is passed. That is the story you want to follow inside the New Times. The East African this week, Museveni looks to West Africa for new milk markets, while Kenya blocking dairy export by Kenya to farm and Algeria deal in limbo. Ugandan leader now woos Senegal as prices drop 73%. Farmers cry foul. That is the reality right now as far as the dairy milk is concerned. And you can read the rest of the details on page 4 and 5 of East African. Ruto between IMF and rioters. Kenyan leader is implementing Bretton Woods measures to access loans while struggling to quell demos over them. That is the story you want to follow on page 10 and 11 of the East African. And Kagame party fights clanism. Known for fostering national unity, RPF has moved to deal with influential members who coronated a clan chief. That is the story you want to follow inside the East African this morning. Let's see what we have as the editorial cartoon. And this is where now I want to invite Richard Onyonka and Danson Mungatana, who are already here. Eagerly waiting to be joined by Hilary Segei and Farah Malim. How are you?
Morning, Diban.
Good to see you.
I'm happy to see you too. It's been quite a while. Yes.
How was your weekend?
Senate is busy. If you ask my chair here, it's a very, very, very busy place. So we get tired. We are traveling Yeah, so sometimes we don't even have time to come here. At least I want to apologize that twice.
You know your sins.
Yes, I know all my sins.
You know your sins, and of course, in church we implore to forgive. Right? So Danso Mugatana will tell you, yeah, the president was, of course, in this tough this weekend as well. But good to see you. Thank you very much. We had the editorial cartoon. If we just have it up back so that you can actually also chime on it. Danso Mugatana, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah.
Fresh from Tana River.
Yes.
Good tidings from the president.
He was in Taita Taveta County, not Tana
Oh,
River
yeah,
County.
normally. He's in Taita Taveta.
Yeah. Although, okay, Taita is also home because that's where my mother comes from. But yeah, it was a beautiful weekend. I'm so happy people have started actually harvesting at home. And then some have even started replanting. So we are so happy in Tana River. This looks like a beautiful year for us. We thank God for that. On the national, I'm so jazzed by Faith Kipyego.
Oh, yes.
That lady has done us proud. And the day I will meet her, I'll give her crocodile meat.
Crocodile meat. I'll make
Yes.
sure that happens.
I will. I mean,
Why crocodile meat?
I owe her one. She really has done us proud. I'm so happy every time I keep thinking we need to give our children very good names. Yeah, like Faith, you know. Faith. It means maybe because of that name, the blessings of the parents, and I think they did a good job. So I was talking to my friends back home and I was telling them it's time we also go to Rift Valley and get married there. Those who haven't gotten married, maybe we might get some very good runners. You know, you never know.
All right, let's hear from, of course, Richard Onyonka, especially on the issue. And I want us, because both of you actually are on the ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
And you have now the reports there. I can see the state on trial if you look at the Daily Nation as well, before you go to the issues of the day regarding also the cartoons as well. You have what it says here on the front page of the Daily Nation, state on trial. And now the state is being blamed on the issue of the Shakahola because of a negligence. I know this has been on your table, Danson Mugatana.
Yes.
And Richard Onyonka as part of this committee as well.
Yes.
And so far, where are we at? It seems the number is continuing to go up and up.
Well, first of all, it's true that some of the members who have come to the committee have really placed the blame squarely on the security agencies. It is true that some of the submissions we have received have pointed a finger, an accusing finger, at the security agencies. Because how could all this have happened when nothing was being done? And the lawyer for the owners of the Chakama Ranch,
Yes.
Ranching Company Limited, who are the owners of that Shakahola, even said that they actually have an OB that showed that they had made reports of strange activities happening there, but no action was taken. Equally, the minister has come before us and said he believes that there are some people who slept on the job. So these are some of the things that have come up. So it is true, there's a problem, and it has gone even to the judicial system. Some of the people who have made submissions before us have said, how could people fail to secure convictions in such a manner? It seemed like there were also lenient bail terms and so on. But then again, when the DPP came, he gave a fresh insight into the whole thing. How do you secure conviction from witnesses who are completely scared of the accused person? So when they come before the accused person to give their evidence, they are not free to do so. So some of them would even change their evidence when they are before the court. So in those earlier cases, there was a problem because you cannot prosecute a case without having witnesses. But in this particular one now, I think the whole multi-sectoral justice system is there. The victims are being counseled. Potential witnesses are being prepared in good time. And the psychology aspect of it, the psychological aspect of it is being taken care of.
The psychosocial.
Psychosocial aspect of it is being taken care of. So I think it's going to be a different ballgame. So for me, it's not it's too early for me to really take position in this matter. We still have a few more days to go. We'll file the full report. Some of these things will come out. Senate will debate, and if they adopt the report, I think we have a lot of changes that need to be done within our systems to make them more responsive to what is happening in our society.
Fantastic. Right, Richard Onyoko, you wanted to weigh in on this as well, or briefly?
I'll agree with you. The issue is, I really shouldn't say much after my chair has spoken. But I think the brush out that I could do is that one of the issues that came up, and I know that my chair is going to be diplomatic enough not to go that route, is that we hope that the CS will allow all the individuals. I think if you ask the chair on who was discussing what is to be discussed and actually what happened, there were those government officers who were at site at this particular time. If you remember in the media, what actually happened is that they were all transferred.
Yes.
So when the CS comes and says that I'm going to issue a statement about this matter, and we are not going to allow many of or any of these people who are at site at the same time, that becomes worrisome.
Yes.
Because this matter needs thorough interrogation, thorough analysis of the data and information, conclusive if possible, and very, very serious suggestions on what is to be done. We need to look at our laws. We're still using the penal code to deal with religious matters. And you see, Dibal, the truth is very few people would be willing to actually come out and make those very serious recommendations that require for us to basically oversight the church.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything illegal or criminally untoward or that would be violating people's rights if we actually basically sanitize the church without infringing on the rights of the church members, infringing on their ability to worship and their rules and regulations. I think just like any sector, whether it's the medical industry, whether it's the construction industry, whether it's any industry, the people who manage this industry have to qualify for the basic minimum level of education, for example. If you look at the total number of people that are involved in these churches and the amounts of money that is involved in these churches, I think we need to look at it very deeply and make sure that whatever recommendations we make, because as Chair has told you, most of the stakeholders have nearly finished giving their opinions and their suggestions.
Yes.
And I think with my able leadership of my Chair, Honorable Mgatana, I believe that the report will be honest, will be open, and will have very critical, fundamental recommendations on what is to take place.
On objectivity, well,
Yeah.
that's where you seek honesty as well.
Yes.
Let's drop in Senator Hilary Sigay. Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Deba.
Yes.
I'm happy to see you as well.
Yeah.
As well as my colleagues. Just noticed today now your bench or panel, comprises the Senate, so we should be dealing with devolution. My colleagues, Senator Batana, and my colleagues and neighbor Senator Onyonka.
Yes, and of course also they're fighting for the fertilizers to be given to the wards.
Wards level.
Yeah, will tell us more.
And that is the conversation that we should have. We should be asking the government to make sure that the lowest level of administration, being the ward, is served with not only the fertilizers, every other service that comes from the government must reach out to the lowest level of government administration, and typically that's what devolution was meant to be. Dibala, I'm just a bit worried about the headline, The Nation State on Trial. It's a screaming headline, which when you look at the content, it doesn't warrant that it's a reference to state on trial.
You think it's an exaggeration?
It is an exaggeration, particularly because of the situation that we are currently experiencing in our country. Yet the story is about the contents of what my colleague were discussing on the religious...
But we have the flag there. It's a Shakahola horror.
Yes. And Shakahola horror is not as screaming as state on trial. The first thing I thought when I saw it is that state on trial, we are talking about the demos, we're talking about the issues within the country, only for me to realize that the only screaming element here and the only issue about state on trial is wheels of justice slowly turn and the country slowly recovers from Shakahola tragedy. That warrants now the headline. But nonetheless, I'm very sure that in the fullness of time, we definitely shall appreciate the fact that the wheels of justice are indeed slow.
Will prevail.
But it is going to prevail, yes, at the end of the day. But otherwise, I'm happy again to, be among the Kenyans who woken up today, looking forward to a great week and also looking forward to a changed Kenya and a changed effort to make things better and to work towards changing such headlines to headlines which gives Kenyans hope, which also speaks to what is very positive about what people are doing, what the government is doing, and where we are headed to as a country.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, set on trial. That is the Daily Nation. Why Ruto and Raila and Uhuru wore a risky gamble. We shall be discussing this as well. This is also what is on the front page of the Star. And Uhuru, keep my family out of this. I wanted us just to also look at the editorial cartoons briefly, if we may. We had actually started that. And I wanted us to just look at what we have on the front page. This is the editorial page of the Standard this morning. I extend my handshake of friendship. You can look at that editorial cartoon there, right? And we have, as always, personified as Arab Singh, holding an AK-47 and proffering his hand to, of course, greet Raila Odinga there. This is in the Daily Nation. What would you say, Richard Onyonka, looking at that editorial cartoon? And especially just putting it in the perspective of what we are actually going through right now. What will be your sentiment?
My honest observation is that cartoon actually expresses the general feeling on our side. And that feeling is that the president is actually making the statement and commenting on this matter for the simple reason that, of course, there's a lot of pressure. People have died. And yet, when you listen to the voices of people discussing whether it's from Azimio and whether it's from the KK Alliance, I don't expect much to go on. I wish that our leaders could sit down and kind of agree that our country needs some engagement with itself. I think our country is at war with itself. Of course, the protagonist and antagonist in this case is President William Ruto and, of course, Raila and his team. And if you look at the events which took place this past weekend whether it was the demonstrations on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I can tell you, Dibal, I went down to Kisii and then came through Kisumu coming to Nairobi. It is unbelievable. Some of the things that took place, the way people are being shot, the injuries that you see that took place. Essentially, I think when you look at that cartoon and see that the guy has cleverly given the president a gun, which is smoking, which means he's using it. And of course, it is giving Raila breaks to stop and re-engage because it looks like there's no good faith. But for me, and many, many, many Kenyans, we are taking a totally wrong direction on our politics. It is not on. What is happening right now, you see 3 young men who are shot, and you could make an assumption they were shot together fighting the police during those demonstrations. Go to a hospital in Kajiado and then state operatives come and say remove these people from this hospital because they were participating in the demos. The question I keep asking myself, what has happened to us? I feel like there's a very strong sense of hate that is even superseding the political beliefs we have. That we are slowly normalizing these events, all right? And in this case, Dibal, I am not going to talk about how we in ODM have behaved well and we have not done anything wrong, but like I've said before, all the people who have died are actually people who have been killed by the police. Except most probably there's an incident in Kisumu where a police officer, I think 2 or 3 police officers have died. 25 or 10 or even 3 Kenyans dying is already too much. So we need to begin to look for a way on how this country can talk with itself. The truth is, whether we like it, whether we criticize it, whether we celebrate how this is wonderful, you look at this picture, whether we are going to look at the media and you look at the pictures they're presenting and you will say it is an exaggeration and all that. It's not. It's not an exaggeration. On Wednesday, I was in Nairobi. The demonstrations were there. The city stopped. Nairobi is the 2nd largest economy after Kenya. The economy stopped. Are we making it successful that the president and his team get engaged and accepts that there's a likelihood, maybe, first, have they gotten the message? I believe so. Number 2, is there a need for the leadership in our country to actually discuss the critical issues that are substantive? And I know that we are always running back and forth about this story of, you're talking about open the servers, the elections are over, why do you want us to go that way? My argument is that that shouldn't even be the main issue right now. And many of us have said that, right? That what we need to do, and in this case, I believe that what KK has agreed by saying that they're willing to discuss the elections of 2027. Yes. For me, I would pick that. And let us also allow KK to begin looking at some of the issues that our side is raising. Sometimes it is important that we discuss matters of our country without even personalizing them. And the fear I've got is that the country is not at peace with itself. And if you have a country which is not at peace with itself, then it affects young children, it affects mothers, it affects... And yet the issues in our country right today, my brother, these youths, most of them who are running around these estates when the demonstrations are taking place, these are unemployed youth. These are youths, some of them who finished university and have never gotten jobs. The preoccupation that we must hold is that we should continue discussing critical matters, and that is why I keep saying, I will speak as the Senator of Kisii County, Dibal. Me as Richard Onyonka and the people of Kisii County don't want Raila to negotiate with William Ruto for a handshake government. What we want is Raila to play his role in making sure that the outstanding 20%, which we've always talked about, the constitution is okay, but there's that 20%. Let's look at what are the issues that are making our country ungovernable. Why is it that every 5 years we are raising the same issue about elections?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, let me rope in Farah Maalim as well. Farah, I can see you struggling to get where the cartoon is.
Yes.
This is the Daily Nation, page 16. And the cartoon also is just there for you to, in front of your screen there, if you may look at it here.
Yes.
Yes. So you can pick up from there. Just tell us how you were, first of all. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good
too.
morning.
Thank you. Morning to you.
Yes, to you.
How is it going?
Very well, thank you. So you've been following the development. You can give us
yes. Oh yes. Well, I don't know what you're asking. What did you ask? What's your question?
That's a tragedy of coming in late. You have to catch up.
Yeah. I was listening to Onyonka.
Yeah, yes.
I was listening to Onyonka. And you know, sometimes you could be saying things and you look like you're completely off the mark. At the risk of being seen as somebody completely off the mark, I have just two things I want to tell Kenyans. These elections were concluded. We put in mechanisms in place. The mechanisms was the Supreme Court. I was in Parliament, Onyonka was in Parliament, 10 Parliament by night. The idea was that, and we did it when we were in government. We had a coalition government. If you feel that still the electoral system in this country is unfair, there is no electoral justice in the country, from the beginning I've been telling people, let us address that as an item itself. Including before we went to the elections, if we had said that until or unless this is fixed, we're not going for elections. There was going to be definitely a way Kenyans were going to come together. But because we were with the president of the day when we were going for elections last time, we assumed that this is done and dusted and this thing was going to be in our favor. And now that it has happened the way it has happened, then we get into this, kind of a wake-up call or kind of a knee-jerk, what do you call, attention, and we say, no, what do we do? You cannot ask a government of the day which has just unemployment. Onyonka is talking about unemployment. I totally agree with him. Did it start in this since the last election, or it was there from the beginning? It was there from the beginning. Why didn't we pick up the same things before we went for the elections? The cost of living has been rising and rising for the last 10 years of Uhuru. It was the worst thing that happened. I mean, I could say that was the worst era of this country's history from independence. Did we pick up this thing and go out into the streets to protest again? I said, no. We were supposed to be the official opposition out there, which was going to put the government of the day in check. We didn't do it. Because assumption was that this was going to be handed over to us. So even if it's a kind of a fair electoral process, we were not too keen to push for that fair electoral process because the presumption would be, in anybody's mind, we were hoping that we will for once benefit also from an unfair one. Unfortunately or fortunately, we did not benefit from that. You get my point? Now is when we come to another thing and we're trying to look for all the space of the opposition. Opposition, what do you call a role in there? I don't think it's right. My position is very simple. Let us now push for a fair electoral system in this country, which is going to make sure that Kenyans can watch the results. And by 5 o'clock on that day, by 4 o'clock on that day, we can see the numbers each one is getting, including the constituency that you come from. I have been a victim of electoral injustice myself for the longest. I've always wanted us to go out there and fix this system, but no. That doesn't seem to be the priority for all sides, all the time. Politics is a priority. Political entrepreneurship is a priority. We have done this many times in the past, but my saddest reckoning and realization is that we have a country or a nation which essentially is so gullible, so gullible. Anybody could walk up to it with a story and we will end up with, and get whatever he wants. One time I had said, this country is going down a very bad road, and I'm looking for the next president of this country being a drug dealer, a top drug dealer. like from the Medellin, what do you call it? Because we have seen people who have been associated with the drugs becoming governors. We have seen people making it to the parliament the way they want.
From Narcos.
Of course. We have seen people who...
this is where we are.
Hang on a minute. We have seen people who are drunk 24 hours a day and we still make it to the presidency in this country. You get my point? You know, Kenyans cannot call a spade a spade. I don't know where we are going. We choose to take this selective amnesia and just basically decide, no, what happened to the education and the elite of this country? What happened to the middle class? And now we're seeing the worst. And by the way, let me tell you one thing. Anybody tells you that there's going to be a mass movement that's going to go there and walk into State House and take over the government, it's never happened in the world history, the modern world history, except in Iran in 1979. Give me one other situation in which that has happened.
There's this state, where was it?
It was Thailand.
It was Thailand. Was it Thailand? Yes, where they actually,
see,
they went to State House.
In Thailand, the system was the people, the society, the leadership and everybody, you know, the system was so rotten. I mean, the extent of the dictatorship was so enormous that the king and a selected few would always determine that. Now, you see, we don't have a situation like that. We have a constitutional democracy in here that we negotiated ourselves and put it in place, for God's sake. I was the deputy speaker when this constitution was being put in place. Every bit of it had our role in that. And there was a coalition government at that time, which means we were the government at the time. I was telling Onyonka the other day, I'm the one person who has always been in the opposition. You could say that time we were in the government because we joined in the government together. Okay. And we created that thing together. So what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, I don't know where this country is headed. Because if it's going to become a nation of men and women, where a personality will come out there bigger than life, and that personality will say, this is the way it is. And everybody will go out there and, like a cult, Mackenzie Shakahola thing, kind of a thing. And then we will all go out there and say, oh, this is our demigod. And follow that person. Doesn't matter which direction we're going. Then the country is doomed. The nation is doomed. And I'll tell you, the other thing I'm going to tell you, and this is what people have got to be aware of. It's better to have an autocratic rule than have a failed state. Because when it comes into a failed state, how many nations are we going to get in here? How many centers of power are we going to get in here? 50, 48 of them, each country will have its own militias and each country will have people who are chopping off people's heads. Look at what Somalia has been over this period of time and what it is right now. And by the way, the one thing you need to understand and appreciate that Somalis are one ethnic community. One ethnic community, same language, same looks, religion. Same religion, same sect of religion. They are all Sunni and Shafi'i. You understand my point? All related to one another. Every Somali you see has a relative in every corner of this place. Because we never used to marry from our clan in the past. You don't marry from your clan, you marry from the other clans. So there's this intermarriage between themselves where the blood literally goes around, that the DNA is similar one way or the other throughout. Do you have that situation in Kenya? You speak in English, I look at you and I know whether you come from Western Kenya or you come from Luo Nyanza or you come from Kisiland or you come from the Coast Province. And now imagine a situation in which you have a failed state with that kind of a divide.
All right, we need to take a short break.
Syria is different, let me tell you. Syria is different. What do you call this other country? Libya is different. Those are Arabs. They more or less share what I'm telling you right now. They do have certain differences, but they share a lot of things. But ours will be like Congo. You know what Congo is now? The Democratic Republic of Congo, where you have over 100 communities there, over 100 tribes there, and different languages, and Katanga, and when you go up to but the light is different. So we will have a problem in this country. So let us maintain certain stability. Let us protect what we have right now. The issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you.
You cannot make the policies of a government when you're in the opposition.
Indeed. Thank you.
Are you getting my debate? Yes. I don't think you got that.
I got it.
I don't think you got it.
I got it.
You see, all that Trump can do right now is to say how awful the rule of Biden is, hoping that in the next election, Americans will opt for him as a choice. But he's not going to say that you must implement my manifesto, you must do A, B, C, D, do this. Taxation is the role of the government of the day.
Thank you.
I would love to see them tax everything so that after 5 years, we say, look at what you got yourselves in. Choices have consequence, and then we get 80%.
Thank you, Farah. The music is up. Right, time for a station break. When we circle back, of course, we shall be delving down into that as well. very interesting cartoons as well that we have in the dailies, looking at the Star, where we have the government of Kenya vehicle on a reverse. We shall be looking at where it is actually going.